And shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the lost sheep of Israel. I'm the pastor here, Elder Johnson, also at King James Bible University. And today we're going to be going through an interesting, very interesting teaching. And after we finish, I decided I'm going to do it in the front because of what's going on. And then after that, we'll go to the Zoom for all our newbies to question anything that's unfamiliar with them or they need more clarification. But before we just get started, I do want to make one just quick announcement. And this is based on the Sovereign King James Bible that we have out. And I warn people, and I warn people on top of warning people. And I have to go back to that old saying I took and told you. We have some people where that book is now, they sold a few of them at 1,000. And I have some that notified me this morning where they wanted to buy some more from me because they sold 2 of them for 1,800. But as I told people before, the more they can become harder to get, the more the price is going to rise. It become in demand. So the more the demand, and the more people decide you're going to pay for it. And I want to make sure people understand 2 things. If they sell it for that, that's what they sell it for. That's what they feel it's worth. That's what it is. It's not that they gouging you. They're doing it on demand. The less it is, the more they're gonna pay. They're gonna charge in price. That's the nature of the beast on what happens. And this is why I don't know how many times I tell people, if you're gonna get in right when it was. And when it was $250. Now you have people selling them, and they keep hitting me for these other ones. But they selling them right now 1,800, and they sell them in a few places, but they actually getting it. I have 2 people I deal with kind of closely. Theirs going for 1,000. Now I do know I'm not sure. I believe my brother have one or two. I believe. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what the price he has. But the main thing is you check with those vendors to see the best deal you can get. But if you're looking for one, because I'm gonna tell you right after they're gone, they're gone. I'm not printing. I'm not reprinting any. They're not gonna be any more like that. They're not gonna be where you can get them in that format at all. So don't think, oh, he gonna print some late. No, I don't. We're done. So my main thing is, if you're looking to get one, catch those vendors. And then if not, you can sit there and see what we have. But just like I said, this I knew was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. And so my thing is, if you're looking to get one, make sure you catch the vendors, or you can call us and we can see what we can do for you. But make sure you get a hold of them. Because right now, it's starting to get kind of crazy. But what I do want to do, we have today, we're looking at this here, tithes. And I'm still in the little part on how it was laid out, because I seen how he had it laid out, but then what he was able to do. I can put the four Bibles up there based on the same thing that I have, because I seen what he was doing, but it was good. And I got that from Deacon James. So we're going to be doing some of this here and getting a better understanding. But the main thing is we want to look at these tithes are. And we're going to look at this and see how this is. Because for us to define tithes, I want to make sure everybody write down what's going on, because you're going to run into a lot of doctrine today on what we don't normally teach on and the way we do it. But to explain to you, we're going to look at Malachi chapter 3. We're going to look at verse 8. And what I want you to do, I want you to write these verses down, because you're going to see some verses I'm going to use that is not normally there. And one of them that we'll be getting to right after this. But it tells you, will a man rob God? That's Malachi chapter 3, looking at verse 8. Will a man rob God? This is Jehovah asking a question. A question. And he says, yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, meaning what we as a people, what we say, wherein have we robbed thee? And he tell you in tithes and offering. And you have these New Testament believers, you have these New Testament churches, and they say the Old Testament is done away with. And we had the biggest problem because they love to use this verse to extract money from you. But then you have people who still sit there. So we need to explore more so the spiritual obligation on what this is actually talking about tithes and offering. And to explore this, we have to look at the spiritual side of the obligation to where we can understand the parables within this, the similitudes, the tithes and offering. And this is the nature of God's provision. So we need to see this. So let's look at something. We're going to go over here. We're going to look at Leviticus. We're going to start there. We're going to look at Leviticus 27, but we're going to look at verse 30. We're going to start here and get a better understanding on this. But we're going to take it all the way down to, we're going to look at it all the way to 32 we want. And we want to make sure everybody understand this. And he says, in all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the trees, it is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. I want to make sure you keep that in mind. And it's telling us, if any man, M-A-N, so that's talking about male or female, will at all redeem aught of his tithes. We're going to find out exactly what this means. We're going to find out exactly what this means. Redeem of his tithes, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof, in concerning the tithe of the herd or of the flock, even of whatsoever passes under the rod, we're going to find out what that is. The 10th shall be wholly separated unto the Lord. You see that? We see it. This is why we want to clearly understand what is going on. We want to put all these together to make sure we have this. We're going to take this over at Numbers. We're going to look at 18:21. I want to make sure we get all this together. And it tells us, and behold, and remember, I have given the children of Levi all the 10th in Israel for an inheritance for their service. The service, because they do it in the temple. They teach his people. In their service which they serve, even the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Exactly what you see what's going on right now. This is why we have to really start getting this, and we're getting some understanding, but it's going to get very serious. And why I really want to take my time to where we can understand, because tithes, it is spiritual. It's an obligation. Your own portion, a tribute, the recognition of his sovereignty is what you're given. Declaring the Jehovah as the provider of all increases is what we see here. This is what we actually seeing. And we have to take that for what it is. And to make sure we clearly get what this is actually talking about, we want to know what this is talking about altogether. I want to show you something when you tithing of your increase and what your portion is on what you give, on how this works. And when we're looking at the work of a man, and let's start pulling some of this together. To pull some of this, we're going to look at something. We're going to pull this in, we're going to look at this in First Timothy. In First Timothy. And we're going to pick it up at verse chapter 5. And we're going to take this down. We're going to look at this at 18. 1:5 over 1:18. You see, we have this here. We need this here. And we need this here. So let's look at this. And this is 1 Timothy chapter 5, looking at verse 18. For the scripture says, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. And including the labor is worthy of his hire. We need to understand that. We need to understand that completely. And we're going to get a whole lot of understanding on what we actually doing, because we have to put these all together. I want to show you something to where we're going to keep honing in on that right there, to where we can get a better understanding. And then as we get the better understanding, because we're going to first see that this is in the law. This is actually in the law. And as we understand law, we're going to start getting a better understanding on why he's saying what he's saying. And you'll see it here. Let me we're going to look at 25, but we want to look at verse 4. And it tells us, it's clear as day here. This is according to law. Thou shalt not muzzle the ox when he shreddeth corn. So you can't muzzle the ox when he do shreddeth the corn. You can't muzzle him. It tells you the same thing when we look over here. We're looking at everywhere where we're going to see this understanding, to where we can get a better understanding on what this actually means. In Matthew 10:10. Matthew 10 and verse 10. Let me see. You switch this where right here. And it tells us with this no script for your journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staff, for a workman is worthy of his meat. Why this is there? For a workman is all I needed. Is worthy of his meat. So we need to understand what's going on with this ox, the ox. We're gonna start finding out more so now what's going on with the ox. Because the ox, we want to make sure we write it down. The ox is a similitude of a labor, a man, M-A-N, male or female. The ox is a similitude of a male or female. It revealed the fundamental principles on what we're going to be doing within this divine framework, where the worker's substance is inherently connected to the fruits on what we were saying all right here. The fruits is work of their labor, specifically in learning and adhering to the word of Jehovah. So this principle is firmly established in the prohibition against muzzling an ox, as it's written in the law, reflecting Jehovah's unchanging commitment to justice, provision to those who labor in accordance with his commandments. So this precepts that you see here, everything that you see here, it resonates with the automation. Actually, let's see something. Let's see something here. It resonates here. So we're going to go to Second Thessalonians. I want to show you something. Let me close this one. We're going to look at Second Thessalonians. And we're going to look at chapter 3. We're going to pull it over at verse 10. We're on verse 10. And it's here. This is what a lot of people don't like. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you. This is what's commanded of us. That if any would not work, neither should he eat, neither should he learn of. So mainly what this is telling you, even more clearer, people who choose to just want to lay back and we feed them grapes. They just want to lay back and we feed them. Well, what about this? Did you do a study? No, I just want to know what it means. He don't work, because this is one I hardcore stands on. If you choose just to want to know stuff, just to want to know it, you shouldn't even learn of it. This is what's getting into. So we have to bring this understanding to an alignment on what we're doing. We're going to drop down to verse 16. And we want to sit there and see more so. Actually, we want 2:16. I don't know why I'm at 3. We want 2:16. And we want 2. We want verse 16. We're going to grab this here. And it's pretty clear. For our Lord, for our creator of salvation, Jehovah himself, and God, even our Father, the Creator, which have loved us, which promised us and have given us an everlasting consolation and good hope through grace. Exactly what he did, because this proclamation of Jehovah as a provider for this everlasting consolation of this grace that he's providing unveils the deeper spiritual truth. Just as the ox in the sustain the reward for his labor. So we as a people, we are dedicated. We have to dedicate ourselves to Jehovah's work, both physically through stewardship in his creation. So spiritually through the commitment of learning and obeying his word, through learning and obeying his word, through learning and obeying his word, which a lot of us don't do. So through stewardship, this is the main thing. So through this such labor, man can partake in the eternal blessings and wisdom that flows through Jehovah's kingdom. These who neglect to labor or study in accordance with the spiritual responsibility are excluding themselves from the provisions of understanding Jehovah's will. This is why I say you're going to start seeing a lot of things different, even though we're going through here on what is tithes, because we're going to find out exactly what tithes are through this. But when someone neglects and they only want to come here on the Sabbath to learn, I'm obedient to the Sabbath. Don't meditate. Don't do anything. Don't do no work. Don't just lay up and just don't do anything. You want people to feed you grapes. They exclude themselves from the provision of understanding Jehovah's will. That's why many people still don't understand when we speak. You don't know what we're talking about. That's demonstrating disobedience to his statutes. The similitude extends from this highlighted of mankind the responsibility to honor one Jehovah through his acknowledgement and to return the gratitude in doing this. So what we have to do is return a portion of the increase he provides. How do that work? As we out there trading that corn, we putting in work. This obligation is expressed through the tithes. It's holy, separated portion that signifies gratitude of obedience to conventional recognition of Jehovah's sovereignty. So the tithe, in the spiritual essence, it testified to the divine grace. Hope offered those who labor faithfully in Jehovah's vineyard, ensuring that the subsistence of his house is the fulfillment of his will on earth. So when we look at this whole as the dynamic in the integration, physical labor, the spiritual diligence, underscoring the dedicated and the balance ordained by Jehovah. When you see the man's duty and it's sustained by his physicality, we know then that the spiritual labor aligns with him, with Jehovah eternal purpose. So the commandment, to tithe in the labor, transform man's earthly work with the act of worship, reinforcing the unity of labor in the tribute as a reflection of the man's covenant with Jehovah. Meaning this as a whole. The similitude of the ox. The similitude of the ox serves as a profound spiritual emblem, teaching all of us, that the necessity of faithfulness, diligence, and honor in all things pertaining to Jehovah, the creator and provider of us all. So we got to see how this application of tithes, we got to see how it works to where we can acknowledge this source of this increase that we seek. So when we look at this and we're looking at the biblical context of this to understand what tithes are, tithes is intricately linked to the understanding of labor spiritually of divine provision. I need you to write that one down. Is linked into the understanding of labor. So the labor of man, man, so we know it's talking about a male and a female, whether it manifests in cultivation of grain, pressed wine, the production of oil, which all this we're going to get into later. The care of the herd is seen as a pathway through which blessings are bestowed. So then these fruits, these works of labor is not merely a personal achievement, but they're going to always be viewed as gifts from Jehovah, who is the ultimate source of all increase. Hopefully you caught this. Hopefully we understand what I'm saying thus far. Hopefully we really get this. Because tithing, it operates as recognition of acknowledgement of what we're seeing when we're looking at acknowledgement of divine relationship. So when we're looking at this, when an individual, any one of us, anyone who's sitting there and you learning of God's word, that person, that individual returns a portion of their increase back to Jehovah, to his storehouse. And we're going to see how all this works. So through understanding this, through the labors as sustained made this for this fruitful of his will, this act is set aside a tithe to be this 1/10, this one produce, serve as both as an offering and a personal reminder of the one's dependence upon God, a practice that is deeply rooted in Scripture. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. And we're going to see some of this. And let's go over here to Proverbs. We want to sit there and see Proverbs on something. And we want this in 3:9. So we want Proverbs 3:9. You see it here. So it's telling you, honor the Lord, honor the Spirit of God with thy substance that he provided for us. And with the first fruits, understand what this is saying, with the first fruits, with the first works of thy increase. You see how this is playing out? See, when we look at this in the framework, let's look at this in the framework, the term substance, it transcends wealth, the possession of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding revealed by Jehovah through his spirit. So this substance now is derived from parables and similitudes. So when we're looking at this, that Jehovah has provided to convey the deeper truth about his laws and his commandments. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because we can get a better understanding, and we'll find this in Hosea. And all this is going to come because once we get a full understanding, we're going to go to some straightforward verses to where now you fully understand what this is all about. In Hosea chapter 12. Hosea 12. We're going to look at this in 12, and we're going to look at this in verse 10. Hosea chapter 12, verse 10. And we're going to grab it here. I just want that part. And it's telling you, it says, I have also spoken by the prophets, and I have multiplied visions and used similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. Did everybody understand what he said here? As Jehovah speaks, I have also spoken by the prophets, my mouthpieces, and have multiplied visions and used similitudes. He's using these similitudes by the ministry of the prophets, meaning this. Similitudes, they represent spiritual truth. Spiritual truth. We following this. So when you look up here in verse 9 in Proverbs, the same thing is honor thy Lord with thy substance, that substance, in thy first fruit of thy increase. Why? Because he has multiplied his visions and his similitudes. Why? This wouldn't in the nature of requiring discernment granted by the Spirit of Jehovah. So when we look at this substance that we see in Proverbs 3 and 9, that you see right at the top, this aligns with the division of divine knowledge imparted through study, is parted through reflection, is parted through meditation, is parted through obedience to his word. So now you see where to honor Jehovah through thy substance, meaning this, to apply and live out the spiritual understanding and wisdom received using to glorify him. Did everybody get that? It's being used to glorify him. It's not speaking to physical wealth at all. talking about spiritual insight that Jehovah has revealed. So we must be shared with the act of one offering the obedience of worship. So now we're looking at these first fruits and what we have to see. These first fruits and what it means, first fruits. Let's look at something. We're gonna pour this, and we're gonna take it step by step. So when we get to where we need to, we'll fully understand what tithes are. We need to fully understand what tithes are. We can't sit there and we're gonna run through. Let's look at this. Let's look at. No, I'm gonna fully educate you on what tithes are. Exodus chapter 23. We're gonna look at something. Chapter 23, and we're gonna look at this. In 23, we want verse 19. 23 and 19. And it's right here. Right there. The first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of the Lord. Write that down. Everybody to write that down. The first fruits of thy land thou shalt bring it into the house of the Lord. Because we're going to find out the first work. We're going to find out what that is. And it says, thou shalt not see a kid in his mother's milk. But we need to understand that first part. Because spiritually, this first fruits involve the best of understanding of the service that you have to do. As we see over there, the first fruits of the increase. Keep that in mind. So the increase in the first fruits of thy land, we should bring it to the house. But when we see this telling with this increase, it's going to keep referring you back to growth and understanding, wisdom, and application of Jehovah's word. So as we sit there and see this, as the Spirit reveals knowledge through parables, always, similitudes, always, and produce spiritual increase, which should be shared and manifest in righteous living. So when we bring forth these first fruits, it's a gift of knowledge, readiness to return back to Jehovah, the finest, the choicest, the best insight and actions stemming from the labor in his word is just like the tithe was separated from the increase of the land. I'm telling you. Oh, let's go a little bit deeper here. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna go deep. Some people are gonna drown. I promise you. Some people are gonna drown from this. And we want to do something. We're gonna look at something in 2 Timothy. Famous place to go. 2 Timothy. We're gonna look at this. And we're gonna look at Timothy. We're gonna look at 2:15. As he tells us. He's very clear here. He's very clear here. Study to show thyself approved unto God. That's what I've been harping on this now for the past 15, 20 minutes. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman, again, in his vineyard, the workman, a workman, male or female, need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. You working in the vineyard, but a lot of us don't work. A lot of us refuse to work. This is why I keep telling people, my channel goes up and down. If you want to sit back and get fed grapes, go find you another channel and get grapes fed to you. We work here. We put in work. Not here just to feed you, let me just feed them, and they don't have to do nothing. It's not that kind of party here. Put in work. Study to show yourself approved unto God. So when we look at this better, spiritual labor involves diligent study, reflection, obedience to Jehovah's commandments, which result in increase of understanding. This increase of this fruit, this works of spirit works within our lives. So when we offer in first fruits of understanding, we honor Jehovah with substance. Is offered the first fruit, works, our labor, both material and spiritual, back to him. the obedience of gratitude. These are tithes. Tithes. And we're going to find out all this all together, which you can honor the holy portion. So now you're doing this holy portion, this separated portion of the increase that Jehovah provided with these first fruit, this spiritual understanding of grain through diligent study and application of his word. Tithes in the first fruit together embodies conventional acknowledgement of Jehovah as the source of all provision of wisdom. Simple analogy. But are we putting in the work? Are we putting in the work? We let me go here. Let me go here. Because I want to be calm, but I want to go something. I want to just show you something. We're going to look at something in James. James chapter 1, looking at verse 22. We're going to sit there and see something. James 1, and we're going to look at 22. Clear as day. Clear. But, however, be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. That's why if you're a hearer of the word, my channel goes up, down, YouTube go left, right, east, west, north, south. Find one. Stop coming here. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman needed not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. This establishes the foundational principle. The word of Jehovah, when heard, must be acted upon. So when you have this knowledge, this grain through, it becomes this substance. But only achieved through the purpose that transform in obedience. So these tithes as a tangible substance, this material increase. So the first fruit, this spiritual yield, understanding both the offering that demonstrates active faith and submission to Jehovah's law. This is clear. Clear. Not hard. Clear. He tells us something. Let's look at this. Let me close this one. We're gonna go up here. We're gonna look at Deuteronomy, and we're gonna dig down. Just like I said, we're gonna fully understand what tithes are. We're gonna fully understand what it is. In Deuteronomy, no, dang it, I hit that thing. Deuteronomy, we're looking at 16. Yeah, we want 16. And we want 16. I believe that's it right here. Now watch what happens here. Why? You got to compare spiritual. Watch what happens here. It says 3 times a year. We implemented 2, and I was getting ready to implement the third one. We implemented 2, but we implemented the third one. And it says 3 times a year, ye shall all thy male appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he should choose. Actually, I'm going to show you that. I want to show you that. I just want to show you something. And we're going to go to 2 Chronicles. We're going to look at something. We want 2 Chronicles 6 and 6. And I want you to see something. Right here. Let me explain that, and I'm going to come back to it again. So, as he said, which the place he should choose. But I have chosen Jerusalem. He chosen Israel. He chose Israel, that my name, that my way might be there, be in us. I have chosen David to be over my beloved. Remove the people, put what they mean, put how they moving. I have chosen my beloved to be over my people, Israel, the servants of Jehovah. And in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord, the Spirit of God, empty. Better not come before him empty. See, we have to understand that these, no child, no flesh can approach him without an offering, or you will be rejected. This encompasses both tithes, which represent similitudes and portions in your material labor. So the first fruits, as these spiritual understandings from tithes. Tithes serve as recognition to Jehovah's provision. In the physical realm, the similitude why he has to use this. He used it there. We've been harping on this for a while, but I'm gonna go to it. I'm gonna go to it so you see it, because I want to make sure you see it. And we'll see this here. And we'll see it, the rest of it here. Okay. So it tells us, for the invisible things of him, from the creation of the world, are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power in Godhead, that they are without excuse. So it's so important. While first fruit reflects the increase of wisdom and knowledge imparted by his Spirit, together both fulfill the requirements to appear before Jehovah with substance that honor, one, his sovereignty. His sovereignty. That's what it's going to honor. His sovereignty. That's why he holds us to this. That's why we're being held to this level of standards. And when we go back and we look at some of this, and we'll see this in James, go back to some of this. We look at James 1:22, and you'll see here, but be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. And you see when you pair that with the same thing, we go back to the law in 16:16 of Deuteronomy. 16:16 of Deuteronomy, we see it is so clear here. As it tells, 3 times a year shall thy male appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he should choose. In the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, the feast of tabernacles, they should not appear before the Lord empty. So tithes, the physical manifestation of increase. Tithes, the physical manifestation of tithes is increase. The same as he used grain, wine, corn, herbs, is set apart wholly unto Jehovah. But we have to understand how he's doing this. We need to understand how he is doing this. That's why it's so important to where, as I said, many people are going to always want to run under men who actually don't even know how to go through the book, but they're still going to go to them. More power to them. But the thing is, when you don't know and you don't know how to straighten it out, and then they come over here with all these questions, see, you're going to have a 99% chance now you're going to get sent back to where you came from. The reason why? Because many people have done this so much, it's gone crazy. Let's look at something. See this. And all that tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land, all the tithe, not money, all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or the fruit, the works of the tree, it's the Lord's. It's holy unto the Lord. And if a male or female will at all redeem aught of his tithes, his portion, he shall add thereto the fifth part thereof. In concerning the tithe, this portion of the herd or of the flock, even of whatsoever passes under the rod, the tenth shall be separated unto the Lord. That's what it's saying. It's clear. It's clear. So tithes is a return as a token of Jehovah's provision, this ownership of all creation, ensuring that believers honor him with the substance of labor. As I told you, he said this, I'm going back because I want to make sure this is concreted in before we get where we need to go. I want to make sure this is concreted in. In Proverbs chapter 3, looking at verse 9, we made all this clear already, but I'm going to make sure this is pounded in. Honor the Lord. Honor the Lord with all thy substance. Honor the Spirit of God with all thy substance, and with first fruits of all thy increase. I want to make sure you understand that. I want to make sure this is clear. See, because when we understand this, we can start understanding more and more all the time. This helps actually when we look at this. Same thing when we look at one other one. I'm gonna pull one other one, and then I'm gonna pull the scripture. We're gonna start pulling scripture we need to get a better and serious understanding of. In James, looking at chapter 1, looking at verse 22, he tells us something. Same thing. We already went here. All these places we don't win here. But be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only. But why is all this there? This reminds believers that knowledge must be coupled. Knowledge must be coupled with action. Knowledge must be coupled with action. This ensures that the substance of both material, spiritual increase is returned to Jehovah through obedience. So when we're looking at the physical part of this, when we're understanding it, tithes as this 1/10, tithes as this 1/10 increase, are tangible, the representation of fruits of labor. Fruits of labor. How do we look at that? We see this. Actually, Deuteronomy, we're going to look at 14:22. This is where most people know. But we're going to look at it for what it is spiritually. 14:22. Right here. Right there. As it tells us, thou shalt truly tithe all thy increase of thy seed of the field, bring it forth year by year. Bring it forth year by year. Truly tithe of thy increase of the seed that bring it forth year by year. Seed is the word of God. Through what we learn through the similitudes and everything else. Because it tells us that. Actually, you want to tell you what? Let me use this here. The same thing is, we can't remember what's going on, but we have to go through scripture to make sure we stay aligned with it. In Hosea chapter 12, verse 10, we were just here, 12:10, we can understand more so what was happening. It's right here. I have spoken by the prophet and multiply visions and use similitudes by the ministry of the prophets. So these similitudes forms the foundation for spiritual substance, which must act as this shared reflection of Jehovah's wisdom. So now we can see this proof of application that bring forth tithes and first fruit. So the applications of tithes and first fruit together reflects the fullness of Jehovah's provision. So then now the true believer responsibility is to honor him. I want you to follow what I'm saying. The true believer now has to honor him. And why do I say that? Because all your increase of your knowledge, you bring it to his storehouse. But we have to find out how this all works. Let's look at that. Let's look at something. And why it's so it's just really it's disgusting, as a better word, on how people gravitate to such trash doctrines. We'll see this in Malachi chapter 3, but we don't want verse 8. We want verse 10. Tells you right here. And you're going to find out why he even saying it this way now. Told you we got to build up to this. We got to build up to this understanding. It says, bring ye the tithes, bring your portion into the storehouse, that there may be meat, there may be doctrine in my house to prove me now. Herewith saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be no room enough to receive it. A blessing. A blessing. So the same thing is, we need to still understand what this is still talking about. We still need to know what it's talking about. A blessing. I just want to show you what it is. Maybe we got 20. I want to bless it. Oh, wait a minute. We got it right there. A blessing. So he's telling you, he'll open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, knowledge of God. He'll pour this out. Because you're supposed to take that knowledge, your portion of where you being this workman, studying to show yourself approved unto God. And once you do that, you bring that into his storehouse, and then he'll have meat, he'll have doctrine in there. Tithes must be returned faithfully. They are consecrated. We're supposed to go out there and be meditating on what's going on around in the world based on the doctrine that you learn from. You meditate on it, and once you learn this doctrine, once you understand it through the meditation, and you came to the truth of that, now you can bring that meat back into the storehouse. So there'll be meat in this house. So when people come in there, they can get something to eat. They can learn of this doctrine. Tithe serves as a tangible representation of fruit, one's labor of not just material increase, but it's the obligation that underscores the necessary of providing this physical substance of Jehovah's house of his servants. This is the crazy part about this. The storehouse itself is not merely a storage facility for food. Physical food. It's a token, the sacred place designated for provision. This spiritual, this respiratory, where you see this resources is offered and is utilized for the ministry of Jehovah. Give you the best example. The best example I can give you. How many people want to get in there in that KJBU SharePoint? Do you know how many people want to get in our SharePoint? KJBU SharePoint? You have a ton of people want to get in our SharePoint. They want to go in that storehouse. They love to go in that storehouse because there's meat in there. Oh, it's a whole bunch of meat in there. They love to get in there. They love to sit there, go right in SharePoint, and they'll think they're a kid in the candy store. As he tell you, bring all those tithes, bring all that knowledge, and you see, you got stuff from myself, you got stuff from the other elders, you got stuff from all the other deacons. It's in there. It's in there. And he said, be meat in my house. Prove me. It's in there. You can prove it. It's in there. Oh, it's in that house. It's in that house. And if I will not open my windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, a knowledge of God, there shall be no room enough to receive it. People are going there and think they're a kid in the candy store. Tell me I'm lying. The ones in SharePoint who have access to it, Tell me I'm lying. This is what's going on. So that's a token of the nourishment, the care, and provisions of those who labor in service. So they align with the principles. They're going to align with those principles of what God has to offer. This is what's going on here. This is why it's so important here. So when one labor in this obligation, it underscores the necessity. So this storehouse, as I said, it's not this strange facility, but it's nourishment, care to provide those who labor in the service, aligning with the principles of those who labor for the Lord. And it must be sustained through the generous offer of his people. For the reason the tithes is brought into a storehouse, it must reflect his standards of purity and holiness, and it must be free from corruption and neglect. Period. Period. This is why I don't play those games. That's why I'm not here to play games. So when we look at this, it's equally important that spiritual aspect of offering, which is appropriately described through the notion of first fruits, the first fruits of understanding cultivated through diligent study. This is why I tell people all the time, I'm always in the gym. I got to be in the gym because I got to bring them fruits in that storehouse. I got to put them in there. So when I put those first fruits in there, everybody can glean from it. Then we got some other brothers, they put theirs in there, and then we can glean from it. You got those other elders, then you can glean from it. Then you got those deacons, you can glean from it. It all goes in there. And it manifests through various forms, through teaching of the word, sharing insight with others. Living righteously that's aligned with the divine principle, it's a demonstration of our understanding that resonates with Jehovah's pure doctrine. So when we look at this, we can understand when you look at the biblical account on other things. Actually, I want to show you something. I want to show you this. I want to show you something what happened. I want to show you this where you can see this yourself. And we're going to look at Genesis chapter 4. Chapter 4. And I want you to see this. I want you to clearly see this. So it tells you something. Show you something. It's telling you this. In Genesis chapter 4 and verse 3 and 4, it says, in the process of time, it came to pass. Cain brought the fruit, brought the works of the ground, an offering, a gift unto the Lord, please. And Abel, he also brought the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof, and the Lord had respect unto his offering. That went into the storehouse. Cain didn't. Cain offering didn't go in the storehouse. This is what we have to see. This is what we really have to see and understand. See, this differentiates between the offering that's emphasized the important and engaging in Jehovah's commandments and intentions. We have to keep that in mind. Cain offering, that I'm talking about, it came from the works of the ground, which telling you is rooted in flesh. It's rooted in flesh. The effort is devoid from deep spiritual comprehension. So his failure to adhere to Jehovah's prescribed manner it indicated a lack of dedication to study, to discern the will of God. So controversially, when you look at Abel's offering, the firstling of his flock and the fat thereof, it shows you, it exemplifies a lot more of obedience, sincerity, and heartfelt connection with Jehovah's doctrine. So it serves as a reminder. It's a reminder of the necessity of offering gifts that align with the expectation that was set forth by our Creator himself. The rejection of Cain offering was a powerful thing. This underscores on here the place where the storehouse should be originated for pure doctrine. He want to bring some trash in there. And he want to bring in human logic. carnal ambition. That's what he want to bring in the storehouse. Do you know how many people come over here, they want, oh, I want to be a teacher. How you in the hell you want to be a teacher? And you don't even do diligent study. Don't even do diligent study. But you want to be a teacher? Here. Bring in human logic. Bring in carnal ambitions. Cain relied on his own understanding, own effort, while Abel's first fruits reflected the commitment of spiritual diligence, reverence, and obedience to the divine instruction that was handed down to Jehovah. So we look at this unified offering. We looking at this. Actually, I'm gonna show you something. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to something. Dang it, I did it again. I keep doing this again. No, I don't want 400. I don't want 400. I want this one now. Let me go back to Romans. We're going to look at 1. And we're going to pull this up. 1, and we want to look at verse 20. As it tells us, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power, Godhead. So they are without excuse. So when we're looking at these spiritual fruit, must work in harmonious conjunction with the affirming of the holiness that's purely inherited within the offering. Meaning Jehovah's being understood. You understanding what he's talking about. You understand this through his similitudes. So the tithes will represent the provision that of this necessary, of this substance from Jehovah's house. So while the first fruits of understanding assures that what is shared and taught is steadfastly grounded in the truth of Scripture. That's why I got to stay in the gym. That's why the other man, the other brother, the other elder we got to stay in the gym. We always got to be putting in work in the gym. It's free from fallacies, free from incorrectness of doctrines. Together, these offerings fulfill these conventional obligation to honor Jehovah with all increase. He provides, so it'll be meat in his house, in his monetary, in his spiritual, and his intellectual. So when we present anything that's impure, like Cain offer this profound dishonor to the name of Jehovah, it disrupts the sanctity of his storehouse. How in the hell am I gonna put something in there like that? It's contrary to believe that called this particular study of Jehovah's word, so just as Abel did, to ensure that all offerings reflect obedience and commandments and embody his divine truth. This diligent understanding is going to show you the nature of offering this further reinforcement of commitment of living that glorify him. So when we expressing both gratitude and in this allegiance to Jehovah, fulfilling the roles of fulfillment, being stewards of his blessing, being stewards of this. Let's go back to something. Let's go back to something. Let's look at something. We're gonna go back to Deuteronomy 16:16. Go back to Deuteronomy 16:16. And we're gonna look at that. Remember that? Remember that? Actually, I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna do something. Let's look at this. See this here? 3 times a year. Males must appear before the Lord thy God, the creator, the spirit of thy God, in the place where he should choose. And the feast of unleavened bread and the feast of weeks and the feast of tabernacles. They should not appear before the Lord empty. See that there? See that there? I want you to pay attention to that. You see it? I want you to make sure you understand that. It's not playing here. It's not playing there. This is the point here. This ensures that Jehovah, when we appear, we don't come before him empty. Meaning we didn't study, we didn't put in no work. So that's why when I ask people every week, hey, did y'all meditate on last week? No. Okay, why in the hell you here? Why in the hell? My channel goes up and down. Go float around. Go to Oprah show. Go to one of those camps where y'all can float around and do that. Here we put in work. We put work in here. So when we look at this, we understand what's going on. Because we got to do what's required of us. So when we're looking at these first fruits, we understand the obligation of honoring Jehovah. That's why it's so important. Let's look at something. Yeah, we'll look at this in Romans 11:16. Look at something in Romans 11:16. And so as we see this, for if the first fruits be holy, they be separate. So if your first fruits be separated, if those are separated, okay, I want you to keep this in mind. If they be separated, the lump is also separated. But if it be rooted, be separated, so are the branches. See, this is why I say this all the time. This is why I speak that way. See, people won't tell you things like this because they're more worried about getting things from you, money from you. My thing is, if you're not putting in the work, I don't know why you're here. See, that's me. Because I don't need your money. The Lord pays me. So I'm not tied to financial people doing all these things. Let's see something. Let's see something. People don't know why these guys sit there. Why they sit and they would literally put up with people. It says honor the Spirit of God with all thy substance, and with the first fruits of thy increase. That's how we do it. And then all I gotta do is just spit it out. If it's going to 3 people, it's going to 100 people. If it's going to 3 people, it's going to 4 million people. I honor him. I honor the Spirit of God. I don't have to honor no one. I have to honor the Spirit of God. All I got to do is throw my hook out there. And whoever he wants to hear it, he going to let them hear it. It's not about anything else. My honor is to honor God with my substance. Practice my understanding. Reveal the knowledge and the parables, the similitudes, and directed my understanding and make sure that I understood what he was showing me. So when we look at this, same thing with 9, this calls not just me, but it calls believers. This calls true believers to honor Jehovah not only with material resources, but with the spiritual substance of understanding that derive from his revelation. So by offering the first fruit of your understanding, our choices, insights, and actions, we demonstrate gratitude, obedience, and faithfulness all the time. So this knowledge of him, the source of all wisdom, and this increase, this principle aligns with the broader biblical framework, emphasizing the stewardship and accountability and sanctity that returns back to Jehovah. Think about it. So when you're looking at broader things, as we building on this, and we're going to get way deep on this, you find out more. We're going to look at something in 2 Corinthians. But we want to see this. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, we're going to look at verse 7. It's real clear. real clear. 9 and 7 tells us every man according to his purpose in his heart. So let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity. For God love a cheerful giver. You see it here. This reinforces the understanding that the motivation behind giving is so important as the act of just giving itself. So when we're looking at true believers, do the practice of discipline, of tithing their portion from their studies, it becomes more attuned with their dependency on Jehovah. They recognize that their increase is nothing more than a gift, which encourages a lifestyle and contentment and gratitude. So tithing nurtures the awareness of the material and provisions are fleeing, while the spiritual investment yield everlasting rewards. Did you know that? Did you know that? Let's look at something. I want to show you something. And we're gonna go deeper and we're gonna keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Some people, just as I said, some people are gonna drown. Let's look at something. We're gonna take this all the way through. We're gonna go up here to Haggai. And I want you to see this. Real particular thing. And I want you to see this. I'm gonna put two of them up there. I want that one and I want this one. And I have to put it up there because I want you to see it. I want it in your face to make sure each and every one of us understand where he's coming from. We want Psalms, we want 50. 50. And we want this one. We're going to grab this at 10. 50 and 10. Well, we'll start there. Because we're going to take this all the way to 12. So we'll just start right there. Okay. So the reason I highlighted that one up there, because you can see it right there in red. So we see that there. In Jehovah is speaking. He says, the silver is mine, the gold is mine, said the Spirit God of hosts. He says this. We go down. He also says, for every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. Let's go up here. And he takes this down here. And he continues on. He says, I know all the fowls of the mountains and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I was hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine. He's telling us right up front, the world is mine in the fullness thereof. So he's telling you, and he's proclaiming this. These emphasize that Jehovah not only possessed this physical world, but he's the resource and exercise over dominion over every living thing in the world. So this understanding, it has to raise this serious question. This serious question now. I want you to truly think about this. Everything in the world belongs to God. So this comes with a question, and we have a pretty good education on what tithes are, and we're going to get some more education on it. So I got a question for you. Why does Jehovah, who owns all things, command to return tithes of his creation if the tithes was money? If the tithes was money. So, because the purpose of tithing is the framework of divine ownership. Tithing is in the framework of divine ownership. It's required tithing. It does not arise from Jehovah's need, but to serve a dual purpose. So we got to see what this function, this tithing, this is a testimony of all possessions, whether physical, spiritual, intellectual, it all originates from Jehovah. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You think I'm playing, but let me show you what I'm talking about. I already know some people are lost now, but they not going to tell you they lost. I'm telling you, some people is lost right now. They're not going to tell you they're lost. And they're going to say they understood everything I said, even though they didn't. But they're going to say it because they don't want to be embarrassed in any way. When if they don't understand, they should sit there and open their mouth. But they're going to stay more in denial, and then they're going to end up in the lake of fire. It says, so God created man, male and female in his own image. In the image God created him, male and female created he them. You see that there. You see it. He's telling you everything belonged to him. Everything. So let's go back here to Malachi. I want to show you this. So I want to put everything back right together. And we look at Malachi. And we look at Malachi chapter 3. And we're going to go back to the same place. We want to look at verse 10. And he says, and bring ye all tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And prove me. Now, herewith saith the Lord of hosts, I will not open a window of heaven and pour out a blessing. You see it right here. So this establishes one, when he created man in his own image, this establishes that man, he's telling you right up here. He's letting us know right here, man. He established. He designed to reflect Jehovah attributes, including his stewardship and accountability. And then what we do, we return that portion, that one increase, such as that 10th, act of this visible recognition of Jehovah's provision. That's why we're supposed to do that. Number one, let's look at this a little bit more. That's why he says, bring ye all tithes into the storehouse. He's telling you what we have to do. We have to bring that into the storehouse. Why? Because this principle fosters this communal care, and this sustains the house of Jehovah. So those who labor faithfully in his service, tithing is not about enriching Jehovah. It's not about enriching him. Everything belongs to him. So it's not about enriching Jehovah. But it's about teaching, humility, all man, responsibility, dependence upon him, encouraging believers to reflect the gratitude, obedience, and recognition to his covenant relationship that he has with us. That's what it's for. Let's look at something. I'm telling you, let's look at something. And we see this also we'll see this in Job. And we're going to go somewhere. Let's look at something in Job. And in Job, we'll see this in 34. 34. Bingo. 34. And we won't just verse 4. Won't verse 4. Verse 4. And it tells you. It says, let us choose to us judgment, and let us know among ourselves what is good. What is good? Why? We're going to go to the same place. We want 33, because we need to know what is good. 33, same place. With this one here, what is good? And he's telling us, the Spirit of God had made me. He made us. And the breath of the Almighty has given me life, has given each and every one of us life. So he's telling you we have to honor God, as we keep seeing Proverbs 3 and 9, honor the Lord with all thy substance. Not as like what Abel did. Not like what his Cain did, I'm sorry. what Cain did. Cain offering was fruits of the ground, symbolized by the flesh. This reflection, this reliance upon his own labor, without any spiritual insight. Reading one verse and then you know everything else. It shows you where everything falls apart. So we have to look at this dynamic of ownership, the responsibility through Jehovah's own things, the own way he does this. Commands tithes as a means of fostering one accountability. It's going to foster accountability, stewardship, spiritual growth. See, and he does this among his people. So tithing now becomes a token. Why? Because you're gonna bring it in there, and we got to see is that worthy to be into the storehouse? It's a token. It's a token. A visible act of faith and acknowledgement of Jehovah's dominion, which is called true believers, into a deeper relationship with him. So when we're looking at the material tithes, the responsibility of the portion, this increase, this ensures this substance in this house that's faithful to his labors. So by requiring tithes, you have Jehovah teaches his people to prioritize him in all things. We have to prioritize Jehovah in all things, cultivating our heart of trust, humility, and generosity. Think about it. Tithe transcends any material transaction, conventional practice, reflects the Jehovah's ownership of humanity. So when we're looking at divine framework, the tithing is not about enriching, again, but it's about cultivating faith in the community and in the intentions in the initial stewardship. So true believers return the tithes and the first fruits in purity and obedience that emulate Jehovah's generosity and affirms their covenant relationship with him. So when they go into that store, they bringing in some serious doctrine on what was taught to them. They can speak it back. So the question becomes is this: based on everything we did thus far, the question becomes is this: on what was the beginning? Tithes. Tithes. So we look at this in Malachi chapter 3, but we're going to pick it up at a different place now, because we should fully understand this. 3, we're going to start right there in verse 8. Will a man rob God? Will a male or female rob God? Will a male or female rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, this is what we do. When have we robbed thee? I don't remember robbing you. He said you did it in tithes and offering. He said, ye are cursed with a curse, ye in the flesh, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. So when someone sit there and tell you that they ain't robbed God, they telling you a bona fide lie. It can be your mama, your daddy, your husband, your wife, your children. They say they ain't robbed God, they lied. They're a liar. Well, my mama don't lie. Well, she lied then. She told you a bold-faced lie. She ain't never robbed God. She robbed God. As each and every one. He says, the whole nation, every one of us, has robbed God. It says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. Go in there and all we got is that little bitty SharePoint, and the whole world is here. Are you kidding me? That's all we got. Other than that, you go anywhere else, they want money, money, money for this, money for that, money for this, money for that, money for this, money for that, tithe. They call that money, tithe for this, money for that, money for this, money for that. That's what they do. That's what goes on. Oh, we got to raise money, we got to raise money, we got to raise money. Oh, guess what? Can't forget about pastor appreciation. Can't forget about that. This is a prophetic declaration, confronts the breach of this conventional relationship between Jehovah and his people. Will a man rob God? Yeah. Will a male or female rob God? Yeah. This divine inquiry, it unveils the profound spiritual truth of withholding tithes, offering, more than the neglect of material obligations. It is to represent a failure of honoring Jehovah, his provisions. That's what it does. The authority of the covenant. So there's looking at this, we have to explore the legal, the spiritual, the communal implications, such as a transgression using even the precepts in this Bible. The nature of robbing God. The nature of robbing God. Because that holy portion was supposed to be there. And it's not there. It's not there. And we love to sit there and everybody think that they got it there. And it's not there. Let's look at something. In Leviticus chapter 27. We go back here. And we'll pick it up at verse 30. As he tells us. And all that tithe of the land, whether it's of the seed of the land or the fruit of the trees, it is the Lord's. It is holy. It's separated unto the Spirit of God. Separated. But he tells us one thing here. We're going to keep this here and all in play. In Deuteronomy 14:22. Yeah. Thou shalt truly try of all thy increase of thy seed, that the field bring forth year by year. I don't get it. See, the reason why, I'm going to tell you some reason why I don't get it is this. We're going to look at 1 Timothy. I want to just show you something. Go off a little bit, but I want to show you something to make sure we all get this together. And we're doing something according to law. And when you're looking at law, we want to understand what it's talking about. In 1 Timothy chapter 1, well, we want verse 8. And it's telling you, well, we know that the law is good. The law is good. But if we don't know the law, how can we use it lawfully? If we don't know the law, they tell you the Old Testament is done away with. You're no longer under the law. But we know the law is good if a man use it lawfully, if a male or female use it lawfully. And the law was made for a certain reason. The law was done for a certain reason. But the main thing is, we want to sit there and talk about how wise a person we are. And then we can go sit in these places and act as if we're wise and we're not. In 1 Kings chapter 3, picking up at verse 9, it tells us something that's pretty interesting. And it tells us, give therefore thy servants an understanding heart. Give forth thy servant an understanding heart to judge, to teach thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to teach this thy so great a people? Because we're some of the hardest hit people in the world. We're some of the hardest hit people in the world. We're some of the most stiff-necked people in the world. Thou shalt truly tithe of all thy increase, all our portions. And as he tells us right over here, bring all the tithes, bring all your portion in there. So I want to show you something to where we can get this, to how we see how this will make a better reflection for us. I want you to get this so you can make a better reflection on what we have to do. So to understand this, there were why tithes and what they are. We got to look at the framework, the offerings. We want to understand what it is. We understand how it works. So the only way we can see this, I'm going to show you something. We're going to put some things together. We got Deuteronomy. Yeah, we got Deuteronomy 22 to 14. Yeah, 14:22. We got that there. So I want to bring in one more. We're going to look at Genesis 14:16. I want to show you something on tithes. 14:16. To where we're going to get a clear understanding on this. Do you see it here? Abraham had went and he was bringing Lot back. But we're going to see something. And then I'm going to jump and we're going to see a little bit more. But it says, and he brought back all the goods and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. I want you to see exactly what this is what Abram did. And you're going to see how important this actually. This, okay, that's what I need. Okay, so now this is going to explain more than what we need. You see here, and I want this, and I want 23. And you see this here, and we see 23, what it says. I want you to understand what's getting ready to happen. And it tells you, and thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. You're going to eat in the tithe of thy corn, the tithe of thy wine, the tithe of thy oil, and the first name of thy herd, and thy flock, that thou mayest learn. You have to learn. A workman has to learn. The fear, the desire of the Lord thy God always. So the same thing we see here with Abram. And you're going to see it here. We're going to drop down to verse 18. And it tells you about this man named Melchizedek. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem, we're going to find out what all this is, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. So we're going to find out what all this is. Because when we want to understand this deeper piece and what this is saying, when we're looking at Melchizedek, he's a servant of righteousness. Servant of righteousness, king of peace. This city of peace. That's all Salem is, a city of peace. It's telling you exactly what he was doing. Exactly what he was doing. This is why it's so important to make sure here we understand what is being happening, what's going on. Because we need to make sure what he was doing and why he was doing it. Let's look at it a little bit more. Because we're going to take this all the way down to 18 to 24, and then we're going to come back and go through it. And he blessed him, he blessed him, gave wisdom to him, and said, blessed, wisdom given be Abraham, the Most High God. Possessor of heaven and earth, blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thy enemies into thy hand, and gave him tithes. Gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, give me the persons and take thy goods for thyself. And Abram said unto the king of Salem, I have lifted up my hand unto the Spirit of God, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth. I will not take a shoe latch or thread, I will not take a thread or shoe latch, and I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldst say, I have made Abram rich. This is where it gets more serious, but we're going to see something. Save only that which the men have eaten in their portion. these tithes. These tithes. Because you got to remember, Abram gave tithes to him, those goods. He brought back Lot and his goods. Not saying in money or what tithes are. Let's look at this a little bit better. When you see this over here in Deuteronomy, you sit there and see where it changes and it says the same thing. Thou shalt truly tithe of all thy increase of the seed of the field and bring forth year by year. And thou shalt eat. Thou shalt eat. These tithes is commanded. We see what's going on. You eat tithes, your grain, of your wine, your oil, the goods that's designated to aim to learn and to fear your Lord thy God always. That's telling you right there. To fear the Lord thy God always. To understand this blessing accompanies of obedience in the act of eating that reflects the communal celebration of God's provision, reinforcing his relationship between the substance and the spiritual education. So when you eating the tithes, it becomes an acknowledgement of gratitude and reverence towards God, reflecting his conventional bond between the act of giving and receiving that intertwines with the divine blessing. So the same thing when you're looking at this in Genesis 14, it transitions to the directive of that we see in Deuteronomy, this narrative in also in Genesis 14, where Abraham encountered with Melchizedek after his battle, and he was victorious in that. Melchizedek, the priest of the Most High God, he blessed him. He blessed Abraham. You can see it here. So as he blessed him, wisdom was given to Abraham. Wisdom be Abraham. Wisdom given to Abraham by the Most High God. This act of blessing, it manifests the endorsement of Abraham's faithful journey. It was a token of his spiritual recognition, obedience, and victory. So when we're looking at the spiritual meaning that deepens, then we can consider Melchizedek name himself, King of Righteousness. Now we can see this notable, this association of Salem, the city of peace. Titles as it viewed over this governance, where it integrates the righteousness, peace, the blessings of God. So it establishes that Melchizedek not only is the priest, but also as a servant of Christ. It explains the biblical narrative. So when we look at this gift that he also did, he brought out this gift of bread. He brought out a gift of bread. Actually, we want to go up a little bit. Right here. Bread and wine. He brought it out. Bread and wine. So you can see these gifts of bread and wine presented by Melchizedek, which it shows the spiritual significance of his spiritual understanding of bread, the similitude when it's given this offering of knowledge of divine doctrine. Just as it nourishes the body, so too does a spiritual knowledge sustain the soul. You have to look at it, you have to understand what the truth is. Same with the wine, the similitude of faith and blessings. Particularly, I'm going to tell you what, let me do something. Doing that, let me do something. We already see what blessings are. So the same thing is we want to look at wine. Faith, joy, blessing. He's telling you what this is all the time. But mainly you have people who look at the surface and don't get the understanding. So this knowledge of God, this grace, this general towards his people, this communal bread, this wine shows the deeper communal with God through understanding the faith and reflecting this duality of this substance, this both physical and spiritual realm. So you seeing this physical thing of he bringing out bread and wine, but what it's representing is this faith and this knowledge of God that he's giving him. So Abraham's response was to Melchizedek, give him tithes of all. A very important reason why tithing spiritually shows more than just a percentage, but it symbolizes a portion, a share of what God has blessed him with. By giving Melchizedek a tenth, Abraham's acknowledges as Melchizedek the spiritual authority in this miraculous hand of God over his victory. Because you see right there, Abraham gave him tithes of all because he blessed him. He said, blessed be Abraham, but he blessed him with that knowledge, a wisdom to this man, effectively putting God in the center of his success. This tithes was not merely a token, but it was an act of recognition of this divine providence. And then it's additionally to where you can see this relationship now exemplified between God and man. So when we're looking at even the biblical law according to this, Abram, it predates what was written in the laws of Moses that you see in Deuteronomy. So now you can see this continual thread, this practice that resonates through the scriptures that's showing you that we're looking at this Genesis here from 14:17 through 24. You can see it there. He's telling you it's just tithes. So we can see how it draws back this understanding of what we're doing. So men who partook in the feast was also given their tithes, their share. That's why he says, save only that which the young men have eaten in their portion, their tithes, in their tithes of the men that which with me. Tithes shows you what it represents, the practice of tithing that offers the better understanding that tithes has never had anything to do with money, has everything to do with their portion of food and provision. So when you look at this and you see this for what it is, we'll finish this out. You'll see this in starting verse 24 in Deuteronomy 20 and Deuteronomy 14. It says, if that way be too long for thee, and I unable to carry it, or if the place be too far for thee, which the Lord thy God had chose to place his name there, when the Lord thy God has blessed thee, thou shalt turn it into money, buying up the money in thy hand, and thou shalt go into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and watch what he says here, and thou shalt be sold with that money, whatsoever the soul lusteth after, for oxen, for sheep, for wine. You see, he's going right back to what it is, or for strong drink, and whatsoever thy soul desire. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice in thy household. And the main thing is this: many people is going to still let a man deceive them by just talking. And they should rightfully be deceived if they let that happen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this here, and you can sit there and see. I have this, you can look down in the description right now, and you should be able to see a link that's in, you might have to refresh, I'm not sure. You might have to refresh, but you should see a link in the platform. And mainly what it do, it allow you to go back into the Zoom to where all my new newbies, they want to sit there and they want to get better understanding. You're more than welcome, and to where you can put in your questions and everything. So what we're going to do, we're going to end it here. We're going to get ready to take questions and answers from everybody who want to come back there. So as I said before, we have a lot of people who've been here for a minute, but I'm very upfront about what I do. We have people that just come here and they thinking they doing one thing, but you have to study to show yourself approved unto God. And if that's something that you're not willing to do, then I don't know. I don't know why you're here, because we're here to learn about God. So what we're going to do, we're going to break here. We're going to go into the Zoom to where all our newbies can ask us the questions to get a better understanding on what thus said the Lord, according to tithes and offering, or if they understand it. So with that, I say to each and every person, until we meet again, I say to each and every one, shalom.